Audio is coming from the wrong hole.
Dave, just so you know, if you ever do decide to sleep in the trampoline,
Yeah.
it's fucking cold because all it has is air comes through the bottom. So put padding underneath the
Like on top of the. It's so good to have you all here on it's a long weekend. Hello. It's a long weekend today. How is everyone doing? It is Monday, and this means we're starting our week off really intensely here in the neighborhood with Russ, Broom, Mandy, Stobo, Jim Button. Thanks everyone for being here. Jim Button, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing well. Today's a well day.
It is.
I had a well weekend too. It was got to see. We went out to the Granary Road. We should actually do a show from there. It's not open yet, but they gave me access. Tracy, Amanda, and Amanda's boyfriend and I went out. Got access to all the baby kids just came out for the first day. The goats came out for the first day from the barn, and one jumped into Amanda's arms and fell asleep in her arms, and Amanda was crying because she had to leave, and it was, we could do it. They got llamas and they got pot-bellied pigs and turkeys and peacocks. We should do a show. We each have to sit in a different pen.
All right.
Isn't that what we're doing now?
Do it? Let's do it. It'd be great.
Mandy Stobo, you look like you've got a little sun this weekend. How are you?
What do you mean?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit of sun.
I may have gotten a bit of sun. We were having a great time on our deck and doing some yard work. We also caught a frog in our backyard, so we are very excited. Lucas losing his mind. Yeah, it was so loud. The croaking was so loud. And my neighbor was like, okay, there's got to be a frog here. And I was like, it was so loud that I was like, no, this is a prank. And you have a speaker. And you're playing a speaker of a frog because that can't be real. And then we found him and he's amazing. So welcome Hopper to the family. He was only like this big. He's very loud.
But super loud.
But very loud voice. Yes, I think we respect him. Definitely.
Like the frog on Looney Tunes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hello, my darling. Hello, my darling. Yeah, I'm waiting. He's in the shoebox. I'm waiting for him to come out with his tuck.
Yeah.
I always love it when we poked holes in the top of those things because, there's just not enough air inside there for sure. Those holes are going to make all the difference.
Yeah.
It wasn't the dryness that killed them. It was the lack of air.
How was your weekend, Rusty?
It was swell. Yeah.
Thanks again for our party.
Oh, that was fun. Yeah, we kept going after that. It was nice. We had a couple of bottles of wine and laughed a little too much and played with the puppy. It was great. It's a pretty quiet weekend
for you. And well, it's kind of appropriate that today we're going to be talking about recovery and addiction. So if our parties got out of control on the weekend, that's okay. Well, we have an incredible guy who, we just chatted with him briefly. He has this great energy, Perry Johnson, a friend of Russ's, who is going to talk a little bit about addiction, and he helps people deal with those sorts of things. So for all of us that were at the Kids Cancer Care bottle drive and thought, did we really drink all of this?
I'm wondering which one. We should actually do Russian roulette. Which one of us has to is actually having an intervention right now?
We'll find out. But you know what gets people in the mood for a good intervention? I don't know if you knew this. I think it's craft time. I'm not positive, but Mandy, you got me.
Thank craft beer, Mandy.
Oh, that would have been the best. Yeah, I do. I have a mediocre craft, but don't tell your kids. It's going to be amazing. Welcome to Monday Craft Time with Mandy Stobo on In the Neighborhood. Are you guys ready? Take me on
Can we
over
say,
to the studio.
Could we have a mediocre Monday craft time every time?
Okay, so welcome to my craft world, everyone. Today, in honor of the day that it is, what day is it, Dave?
Mediocre Monday.
Mediocre Monday, but it's also Victoria Day, isn't it?
Oh, sorry,
Yes,
Victoria Day.
Oh, that day.
So in honor of our Commonwealth and our beautiful queen, we're going to make something that we get to wear all day and really just highlight this incredible holiday that we all get to celebrate. So, you know, guys, how at Christmas time and you get those Christmas crackers and the best thing, the thing that you wait for every time is the crown?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So that's what we're going to do today. So all you do, it's super easy, is you want to have a straight edge on both sides. So we're just going to quickly do any kind of crown. You can take all your cutouts from other things that you've done and glue them on. Kids love this. It's a super easy craft, but kids love it because you can put jewels, you can bedazzle it, you can paint it, you can do all kinds of things. So then you're going to cut it out. I can't find my scissors. I'm sure that's Luca again hiding it with all my glue. Oh, you're not going to find those here. So you just cut that out and then you're going to glue it on both ends. Oh, there we go. So you want to paint and bedazzle it before, and then you're going to glue the ends so that you have a beautiful crown that you can wear with your mask to the grocery store and the bank.
Nice. And the bank.
That's awesome. It's like Jug.
I don't know why you call it. That's not
Victoria.
mediocre.
It's pretty great, isn't it?
You actually look like, you know, where the wild things, where the wild things are.
Yes.
That's the same. He had the same crowd.
It's so good, right? So I really want to see your crowns today, guys. If you don't mind making these and then send me your pictures, especially you, Jim.
Here's my
crown. That would be awesome.
What's our what hashtag you want to work with on this one, Mandy?
Hashtag we love the Commonwealth, Victoria Day in the neighborhood.
And
crown your neighborhood? Yeah. I don't know. We'll think of it. We'll write something down later.
Yeah, I think you should just stick with mediocre Monday. Mediocre hashtag.
Yeah, I thought it wasn't mediocre.
It was so great. And do you have any coloring for us to do on this?
Well, you know what, Dave? I do have. I have some coloring to honor today's special day. What day is it
again? It's Mediocre Monday with.
What's the actual holiday Monday?
Victoria Day.
Right. So in honor of Victoria Day, I have something very special. It's a coloring page of Harry and Meghan.
Oh. Controversial. This is a controversial Monday now.
I know, but because I didn't know if anyone would get that joke or love that joke, I also did the Queen for you guys.
Very safe.
I really suggest she did her press release for COVID in that green dress, and then the world went wild with green screen. So I would really suggest coloring her dress green, and then we can all put fun images on it. But you know, do what you want. It's your color.
There's no rules.
Man, you took it out of me. You took it way out of mediocre. It's like on to like lukewarm now.
Thanks.
I would say it's on the cusp of outstanding. On the cusp.
On the cusp.
I do what I can. I'm just trying to stick with the branding of the show, you know? I'm kidding.
We could push for a Mac.
What?
Now, do you is the internet mediocrely funny at all?
It's gonna be a bit mediocre today. Maybe some lackluster moments. You know, I got another note from somebody, you know, like Russ, that are getting pets. All these people are getting pets, and I just went out to Granary Road and I got to pet a llama and hang out with a pig and goats and stuff. So pets. My theme today is pets.
All right.
And, I don't know which one we're starting with, Mandy, but Let's not the first. Oh, yes. This one here is kind of, sad and lackluster for sure. One for you old. This is Calvin Hobbes now.
It is perfect though.
Right? Calvin, like that's probably what happens to Calvin and Hobbes. Oh, so bad. Okay, next was with chickens. Chickens crossing the road. Why do you do it? What are you doing here? Because it's all quarantined, right? Get it?
Right.
Yeah,
You get a ticket.
And this next little one. Okay, you need to think this one through, Dave. Do you get it?
Oh.
Get it. Which piggy was that?
This is supporting the Alberta beef industry.
No.
No?
Go through the rhyme. What's the rhyme say?
Let's see.
That's the one that stays.
Markets, farmers market.
That's the one that stays home, Dave.
Oh!
You like this little piggy, the one that stays home. This is my favorite one. This is an article that was in a paper.
Right.
And it was from the dog's opinion piece. Why not work from home forever? There's American debate, and it's a dog. The dog really wants the parents to stay home, and the cat goes, America needs to get back to work. Enough is enough. American business is taking a historic plunge. Yeah. And the dog went here. This is a good, Mandy, maybe you can help me with the sound on this while I read it. Just a good boy volunteering to help with some woo for the ambulance. And then
I like that it's at dog.
This next one, I felt coming into the Zoom call, I had a little panic. I had to go have a shower. We work from home, and everybody wants to have a video call. It almost kind of looks like Yoda, doesn't it?
It does.
It's sort of cute. Maybe it's Baby Yoda.
And this last one is, how true is this one? Quarantine's turned us all into dogs. We roam around the house all day looking for food. We're told no if we get too close to strangers and get really excited about car rides. When was the last time I got a car ride and said, I'll go to the far one? The close store, you go to the far store.
Yeah.
Just to stay in the car longer.
Do you know what one of the oldest breeds that are still around is? I saw this on a TV show with John the other day, so it's true because it was on TV. The Greyhound. One of the oldest breeds out there is the Greyhound. Good thing. I believe the reaction we got from the entire audience was,
Well, they've already said something, but I had to mute because there's a phone happening in my other room. So I was saying that was like the best, absolutely the best stat back.
I think I am. Everyone else is so good. It was funny, and the crafts are good. I'm just bringing it back down to mediocre, everybody. That's my job. So that's what I'm doing.
Somebody's
now we're gonna bring Perry Johnson on here to chat with us for a bit. Perry Johnson helps folks for the past 23 years. He's been helping people with recovery and addiction issues. But the reason we have him on the show, especially, is because he's a buddy of Russ. Because Russ knew him back in the musical days. Why don't we bring him in while Russ talks about him so that he can hear and
can make him
respond to?
uncomfortable?
Yeah, so we can make him uncomfortable if we could. So Perry Johnson originally met. Tell us where you met, Rusty.
Well, I met Perry. I'm telling him our history. I met Perry when I lived in Montreal when I was 19, and he was in a band called Boot Sauce, and he was one of my musical heroes because him and his brother Todd both have this really unique sort of musical sensibility, and I've been a big fan my whole life. So thanks for that, Perry.
Hi, Perry.
Hey,
Hi,
Perry,
everybody.
how are you? So
I'm doing good.
Before we get to recovery, and we'll spend some time on that, tell us a bit about Boot Sauce and a bit about, so this was Juno-nominated, Juno-winning band out of Montreal that you were part of. Tell us a bit about Boot Sauce and then how you met Russ.
Boot Sauce started when our singer Andrew and I moved. We'd been living in England and Toronto. We were trying to get something going, and we couldn't get anything going in those cities. In England, they had all their own problems. They didn't give a shit about two know-it-alls, like smarmy brats from Calgary, right? So we ended up moving back to Canada. We thought, well, let's go to the cultural capital of Canada. This is before Calgary earned that term. Let's go somewhere that's very culturally enriched, like where we can really, wherever that is in Canada, let's go there. So we're like, okay, we'll move to Toronto. And then a year later, we said, oh, whoops, actually what we meant to do was move to Montreal. So we moved to Montreal. And that's where I met Russ. My brother moved there as well, and I met Russ through my brother. As he said, they went to school together, and yeah, we banged around there for about a year, and I holed up in a basement with a couple of the guys that ended up being in the band, and we wrote our first record. And it happened very quickly. It was a time when sampling was just coming into the fore, and I'd been spending a few years getting into old disco and R&B and funk and all of that stuff, and the Chili Peppers were starting to come up, and there was this movement of putting together rock and dance stuff. And so Andrew and I started sampling. It was really only happening in hip hop, and so we took the stuff that we were hearing in hip hop and incorporated that into the music that we were writing, as well as this other stuff. And then Boot Sauce was born. And this was at a time when it was all mostly like grassroots rock. Everybody knows what the music scene was like in Canada at that time. And so we got a lot of attention and got signed to a label really quickly. We put out 4 records, made 12 videos. I toured all over the world, and basically in my mind, I still, when I get out of the car, I'm exiting a limo. Fuck, I'm huge.
Huge. So when did recovery start for you? Before we get to our intervention, all of us are wondering who the intervention's for up here, but tell us a bit about recovery and how that journey went for you.
Well, recovery started for me this morning when I woke up and asked myself what I'm going to do for my recovery today. I first came into recovery in 1995. I was an IV opiate user. I started using drugs when I was 17. I left home, and I was back and forth with different substances, and the way that I would control my using would be to either switch substances, or when the fires of unmanageability burned too brightly in one city, the problem was the city. The problem was never Perry. It was always San Francisco is fucked. And then I would pull up stakes and move to England, right? And then after a couple of years, England is a mess. And then I like that. And so the geographical cures didn't work. And eventually, when I left Boot Sauce, it became, the band was fun for a while, and then it became not fun. And so when I decided I was going to leave because it was not fun, it was at a time when I developed an opiate addiction. I'd gone back to the opiates, and that's what brought me to my knees. And so that's what first brought me into recovery, was going to my first meetings in 1995. And I got 5 years clean and sober, but in the back of my mind, I had a reservation. I thought I could be a social drinker. And so I started drinking again in 2000, and over the course of a decade, slowly my life imploded in spectacular style. But my denial was so formidable that I was having a hard time admitting that I was relapsing, because I'd had recovery, and so my thinking was just so distorted that I talk about this all the time, that even when I was checking into the last treatment center that I went to, which was 10 years ago, the addiction doctor who was doing my intake asked me, said, "Oh, I see you have recovery here, Perry. When did your relapse start?" And I looked at him and I said, "I haven't relapsed." And I tell that story sitting doing an intake at a treatment center because it reminds me the depth to which addiction distorts my thinking. And so that's one of the things that motivates my recovery today, is I don't fuck around with it. And I'm very, very cognizant of the many, many back doors of my addiction, and how it's got nothing to do with opiates. It's got nothing to do with alcohol. It has to do with me changing the channel on my feelings. And that's the thing that I have to look out for. And the only way that I can do that is to have a support community and somebody looking in the house of Perry, because I can't see if I've let the wolf in the door. I need you guys to look in the window and tell me if I left the back door open and there's a wolf in there and that I'm on a slippery slope. Can't do it alone.
Have you, how has this experience, COVID, been now? So now you work with other people dealing with it along with yourself. How is this made it worse? People sitting in their house all day with nothing to do, or is it what's in your experience?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. And there's a good news, bad news element to that. The good news is that sitting around in quarantine is not going to make you an addict. The less good news is that if you're predisposed to addiction in whatever form, being isolated is going to exacerbate those behaviors.
So in people calling you or talking to you, because I'm aware now that I would say I drink more now because you can. It's 11 o'clock, it's 12 o'clock, it's 1 p.m. What difference does it make? Is that in your experience, is that something I need to be aware of or concerned about? Or how do you tell, okay, that's a bit more of a deal?
Well, there is no litmus test for example, if we're talking about alcohol, there's no litmus test for alcoholism. But what I learned in treatment is if you want to know if somebody has a problem drinking, ask them how they control their drinking. And so what I would always do is the dialogue that I would have around drinking, this is just my example, is that I would never drink before dinner. The problem in hindsight is that I was also using. So for example, if I was doing coke all night, I'd be going to bed at 3 p.m. But for me, dinner was still 7 p.m. So, right. So there's that problem. And so my old boss, his thing was, I don't drink during the week, which I was always really in awe of. I'm like, well, clearly it's not an issue for you because you cannot drink all week, right? Friday night, he was gooned, and he was gooned until Monday morning, not Sunday night, but Monday morning, because he was up all Sunday night. He'd come in the worst shape. And so the alcoholism was still pushing around his life because now he was hungover for 2 or 3 days. And for that week, he's not putting substances into his body, but he's obsessing about how he's not going to pick up. Like, I'm not, right? And that's that control piece. If you ask, like, for example, sorry, Dave, but if just as contrast, if my mom is not an addict, and if you ask her, how do you control your drinking? She just will look at you like, I don't understand that question.
Right.
Okay, now I understand what you mean. I've been struggling to try and figure out what you meant by that. Okay. Yeah. I get it.
Now, Jim, I was curious too, because you have to be aware of, as a guy who runs a brewery, I know for you, this is also a question you deal with all the time, is at what point is this, you can't ignore the fact that for some people, this is not easy.
No, and it is one of those things that you talk about quite often when you're doing things, or, it's really hard because we don't necessarily sell to the people that are, directly, because we sell to a liquor store or to a bar, and you don't get to see the same people over and over again. So that's really difficult. The part that I pay attention to is the industry, the people that are selling beer or wine or spirits, and how often they consume. And that's the only part I can really pay attention to directly. But as an industry, we support, I'm on the board of Beer Canada, we support all sorts of initiatives, so they can do the research and they can do the outreach, because it's very difficult for us to try and control. And it's my belief is that it's anything in your life in moderate levels is a good thing. And I think beer in a moderate level is a good thing. But if you could pick anything. If Mandy did nothing but paint 24 hours a day, then, and ignored everything else in her life, that would be a problem. It's all about knowing what a moderate level is, in my mind.
Perry, what's good support in this time? Like how, if I have friends that I go, okay, this maybe isn't an easy time for them. They are isolating more. They are in their own heads more. And what does a good friend do in these times, Perry?
Okay, well, is this a do you need an intervention question? I just want to understand. I want to understand what you're asking me.
I'm not sure, and I'm just trying to, like, I'm aware that there's we talked to folks from the women's shelter, and they're saying that domestic violence is on the rise because of stress, because of all those things. So I'm just aware that in my social circle, all of us want to say, well, we're all together and we all have this, but it's actually very, very difficult and dangerous for some people. And I want to say, how do I be aware of that? And how am I helpful in that? Or what does help even look like in that? I just don't know.
Yeah. That's a really good question. So, okay, so I understand. So I think that, you know, I talked to a lot of people about this, and I think that this whole quarantine thing is evolving us as a society, because it's forcing everybody to push the pause button and to reevaluate.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that's going to come up with somebody who's struggling is that they're going to be in quarantine, and whatever the behavior is that they're involved with, whether that's drinking, using, porn, ordering hookers, work, like, you know, with the workaholism, society's respectable disease, gambling, like just whatever. It's really going to come to the fore because we can't go anywhere. I can't hide. I can't distract. I can't run. I'm just stuck here with my shit. Right. So that's, at the face of it, the problem. The good thing is that now I'm stuck here with my shit and I can't run. Mm-hmm. So, which leaves the question, what do I do now? And I'm not able to drink, like Jim was saying. There is no moderation here. I have, like, if you give me a beer, in my mind, I when I exit the limo, I can slide onto the patio with you and have a beer. The reality is that when you leave, I'll stay on the patio. I'll finish your beer. I'll order a couple more pitchers, and then 3 hours later, I'm scoring some Coke. I'm probably going to hit on your girlfriend. All of this shit's going to happen, right, by way of my not having an off switch. Mm-hmm. And so being in isolation is going to show us that, here's all this time on my hands, and what is the paradigm that is my life? What does that look like? Holy shit, all I'm doing is getting fucked up. Mm-hmm. Right. And so what do I do with that? Well, I can try and white knuckle it and not get so fucked up. Mm-hmm. But that's trying to control something that can't be controlled. Mm. And maybe I'll be able to successfully not drink one day, or for 5 days, or for 2 weeks, and then say, see, it's not a problem. But mm-hmm. But this comes back to that thing of, like, all I'm doing now, my whole time is spent not drinking. Right. Like, it's still pushing me around. Right. And so the only way through that is to reach out to other people who have been in that boat, who have recovery, and surround ourselves. Because we used to be, Gabor Mate talks about that. We used to be raised in a village. Addiction and mental health is a societal issue. Mm. It's got nothing to do with, why we need to eliminate the fentanyl. We need to eliminate, prohibition doesn't work. I mean, this, like, if, right. And this is the thing, this is what flies in the face of stigma. And you hear this, like, when I was still living in Vancouver, I got into a cab, and we were going through the war zone, and the cab driver says, what we need an atom bomb. Just press the reset button. And I tore a strip off of him and got out of his cab. But this is, unfortunately, this is how we think. It's like, it's your fault you picked up the heroin. Mm-hmm. Right. But it's not, when I'm in my addiction, I'm not in choice. I'm looking to turn off the pain. Like I want to change the channel on the pain.
Yeah.
And so if I'm sitting in quarantine, I'm still going to be in pain, and I'm going to use the methodology that works the best for me. And if that's opiates, that's my drug of choice, my DOC, as we say, then that's my DOC. The problem is not the substances. The problem is not, gee, I've been really taking a lot of my prescription pills here. I got to stop taking my prescription pills. That's not the issue. And being a supportive friend, to answer your question, Dave, is like saying, you know, are you doing too much here? Because all that's going to do is push people into shame. And by the way, if I can just touch on the industry, one of the most difficult things that I have to deal with is this industry message of please drink responsibly, please gamble responsibly. That methodology, unfortunately, doesn't help, because people that have the problem, instead, when they see that message, are, I'm fucking it up.
Right.
So what would you recommend otherwise, Perry?
Well, you know what would really be helpful is if we could take all the money that we use in prohibition, that we pay to all the, you know, DEA and all this stuff, we're kicking indoors, all this shit, and do what they've been doing in Portugal and funnel it into treatment.
Right.
Probably the most heartbreaking thing that I deal with in working in addictions is people all the time, like, my brother is this, my boyfriend is this, and we don't have money. We can't, because the treatment center where I work, it's a lot of money to go there. And there's now, the government has some treatment beds that they put aside, but the waiting list for that is formidable. But if you take all the money from prohibition, legalize everything, take all the money from prohibition and funnel it into treatment and deal with the actual problem, which is the trauma.
Right.
I could agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Wow.
Totally.
So rather than please drink responsibly, it's like, here's a 1-800 number. And you know, this is how long it's going to take you to get into treatment, and that's paid for at the government level. If I can go get an operation in this country, it's one of the great things about living in this country, and get my physical needs met, why is this not available to me for my trauma? That's not my fault. My trauma is not my fault. You know, the fragmentation that I have cognitively and like from when I was a kid, that's not my fault. It's not anybody's fault.
And it doesn't help anything to chase a fault around anyway.
No, it doesn't. It's not. But it's important to understand that your addiction is not your fault, and that the cycle that you're in is bigger than you. And the only way through that, like, it takes a village. We used to be raised by the village. And so the things that made me unique in the village would have been celebrated, sorry.
Right.
And in the village, there was nobody going into the shaman's hut and stealing the psychedelics and fucking off into the bush to get high. Like, he didn't have to do that.
Right.
There was no holes to fill. It's like, who I am is seen and celebrated in like, for example, First Nations, two-spirited people were made shamans. We don't do that in this society. This, you know, it's like, we're taught, you be this individual, find one partner, and that partner becomes your lover, your best friend, your confidant. All of this pressure put on one or two people. Everything is neck up. I don't connect with my heart. I have no fucking idea what I'm feeling. It's like, yeah, I want to change the channel on all of this stuff that I have no idea how to reconcile.
Yeah.
Wow. There's some big
people. Yeah. It's missing so much of that.
Yeah.
Extended family, bigger groups of people that are all, you know, accepting of who you are and what you bring.
And helping.
Community. It's such a huge thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So connecting to a recovery community of people that have been there and are like, I understand what that's like. I get the desperation, and this is what I do for my recovery. And no, you're not a freak show. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. Addiction's not a morality issue. It's not like, if only I was if only I could figure out the right combination. Like, I tried all of that. That doesn't work. So it leads me back to the same place. My best thinking leads me back to the same place. And so I need to be in a community. I need to literally build my village. And that village says, Perry, there's nothing wrong with you, right? But I have to stay connected to that village in order to know when I'm going off course.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I like that. I liked your wolf analogy. That was good.
Yeah.
That's
amazing.
So good. Wow. This is a great, I happen to be a big fan of Mondays, and I'm a big fan of a great conversation on a Monday, because it sort of sets the stage for, okay, let's take this forward. And to me, Perry, it feels like being willing to ask for help, being willing to find that village, being willing to look out there, even listening to you now makes me realize how important it is that we have each other, that in this case, you're with us here in this conversation, that it is about having a group around you to say, let's all be in this together. It's so important.
100%.
Yep. Perry, tell us a bit real quick about PerryJohnsonRecovery.com. That's where people can find you if they want to find out more. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So what I do is I support people that are in recovery or want recovery, and I help them with goal setting. So the goal setting, because I guess my motivation for that is that the more people that I can help self-actualize will be more sort of soldiers out there that are now helping other people. And that's really what we're here to do anyway, right? Is to help each other. And so I support people in goal setting, but from a recovery standpoint. So yes, you want to make more money. Why do you want to make more money? Let's get curious about what it is that's gonna, because then I can get the house, and then I can, now I can go travel. So do you want the house? Is it about the house, or is it about the freedom to live somewhere securely and be able to travel? So really what you want is freedom. And so then we talk about, and now it's like we want to break down how we define happiness and all of these things. And so that's what I do. But from the perspective of recovery, it's because if I don't have recovery, none of that matters if I'm dead.
It's Russ said before you came that you bring a great energy with you, and you do, and we're so grateful, Perry. And I also, so you know, I picture every answer you gave is you're stepping out of the limo with big rock hair talking about this. So it really was very dramatic, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's good. So now you get just a sort of a little glimpse into how huge it is for me in here.
Yeah. You know what? Maybe, is there any way I can just grab Mandy's crown and put it on Perry's head?
Yeah. It's such a great perspective on all this stuff, Perry. It's the thing that we don't hear enough about. So I really appreciate you sharing all this stuff. It's really, really, really important. And I'm sure we all know people that struggle, and just to get that different perspective on it is huge. So thanks for that.
And from a guy that's in the beer industry and has been for 25 years, I couldn't agree more with the whole conversation around shame and prohibition and money being wasted on drug enforcement and all that. Yeah. We just got to, mental health has become, finally, it feels like it's finally becoming one of those things that we're all talking about. And I'm really excited that we're making steps in that direction, because that's what's needed right now. And coming out of COVID, I'm really interested to have more of these conversations, Dave, about the mental health people experienced during COVID and how we can, I'm really hoping the reset aspect happens out of COVID in so many ways.
I'm really glad that you said that, Jim, because treatment used to be, I'm here for addiction, and we would say, well, what else do you have going on? Oh, you're also bipolar, or you're schizophrenic, or you're whatever, and this and that. And they would be separate diagnoses, but we don't do that anymore. They're together because it's all the same thing.
It's cumulative.
Yeah. Well, and pretty much everybody is co-current with addiction, is co-current for mental health, some kind of whatever it is, depression, anxiety, like you name it. There's
or even Perry, just toxic stress at a young age.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, if you
Well,
have
that's
toxic stress-
trauma. That's trauma.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, how do you control your drinking? I wrote that down because it's such an interesting question, and I'm going to spend a bunch of time staring at the ceiling, and it's all your fault, Perry. So thanks for that. You're a good man.
You're validating my inner voice right now.
Well, look at Perry, you're awesome, and thank you for sharing that energy and bringing your own spirit and thoughts and wisdom to our group here this morning. That's what a great way to start the week.
Yeah, thanks, Perry. I really appreciate this.
Perry.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys inviting me, and I think it's awesome that you're having these discussions. So yeah, it was an honor. I'll talk about it anytime, and yeah, I think this is one of the beautiful things about this is one of the things, like the rising from the ashes thing, is that we can get together across the country. We have the technology to do this and have these kind of discussions. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, just for old time's sake, normally, Perry, the way the show ends is we all jump around to some music that Russ plays. It's a good 15-second dance number. If you feel like dancing, great. If you feel like just a trip down memory lane listening to Russ play guitar, that's also fine too. But I don't want to brag, but Mandy and I are pretty great.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, Dave, because we're on Zoom and not having to hold a phone.
Yeah.
You're going to dance today, Jen?
We're going to dance today.
Oh, let's wrap up our show. Thanks again, Perry.
Thanks, Perry.
Perry Johnson Recovery. Let's go. Take it away, Russ. I was ready. In the
Nice one,
shorts. Yeah, man, that was good. Ooh, I feel better.
Sounding
Thank you so
good,
much.
Rusty.